Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another live episode of the 49ers Mailbag. I'm your host, Rob Schuh. Feeling a little bit better after the painful loss to Seattle. Getting the voice back, which is always good. Had to rest it Sunday night. Got it going on Monday. Still sounded a little bit raspy after yelling my little head off at Seattle Stadium on Sunday, but didn't quite do enough to get the 49ers a victory. But now it's on to Cincinnati. It is on to Cincinnati, 49er faithful. We don't need to dwell on the Seattle game. We can move forward with a little bit of hope and positivity as the 49ers sit at 6-6. As always, we will be getting into some previously submitted mailbag questions, as well as going through some of the live questions that you all put into the chat. I see a few folks already here. Karthik saying what's up. Notorious GAV, not here for me, just here for my brick, which is in the background there, in the background of the shot. And we do have a Bengals fan in the house, which is okay so long as nothing gets ugly in the chat. We can always put up with having somebody here who criticizes our Niners and roots for the other team as long as it is respectful in that way. JC coming in. Yes, that Seattle game absolutely still hurts. Harold saying what's up to everybody, the Niner faithful. Texas Niner, my positive brother in arms. Love it. Love it. Chris Royal coming in. Yes, still hurts, but we got to move on. We got to go to that next one. Absolutely. Charlie, firing off with the questions. Do I think we can get a dub in Cincinnati? Let me tell you this. I just was on with a podcaster from the Cincinnati Bengals side of the ball who covers the Cincinnati Bengals, and I absolutely predicted the 49ers to win this one. I did. 31-24 was my official prediction, so I might as well leave it here. It is interesting. The San Francisco 49ers' strengths on offense set up nicely against the Cincinnati defense. However, on the other side of the ball, the Cincinnati offense also matches up well against a paper-thin secondary for the 49ers. That is going to be tough. Notorious GAV is with me and having faith. The Bengals are inconsistent. Kind of like the 49ers, but they are inconsistent. We have the more experienced team. I'm confident. I love it. Javier coming in to say what's up. See who else is hanging out. Rick Muniz coming in the chat. Good to see you, Rick. Looks like Prince is pointing out cornerback 1 and 2 are Josh Norman and Dante Johnson. Woo boy. Yes, that is the matchup that favors Cincinnati, because you have a three-headed monster for them when it comes to their receiving core. And that's not mentioning Joe Mixon, who's a quality running back. Dina coming in. Hi, Rob. Time for those Bengals. Go Niners. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Every time I say that now, I can't help but realize how frequently I do say that in response to comments. Charlie coming in. Joe Burrow is game day decision, I believe. But if he can't play, that's going to be good for the 49ers. That would be huge. He has a pinky injury on his throwing hand. That is no small thing. You saw Russell Wilson struggle until he went up against the San Francisco 49ers because of a finger injury. Jimmy G talked about it today. Anytime it's on that throwing hand, that is something to monitor. I believe Joe Burrow did not practice today. Be looking to see if he practices later this week. Andrew Leggett coming in. I have a feeling Ward will get a pick this week. Oh, that'd be big to have Jimmy Ward go off. We need it. Absolutely need it. Thomas Luttrell coming in. At Rob Schuh, I'm still at work for 27 more minutes. Wanted to tap in. Question. After Shanahan admitted cornerback being a struggle, will they spend real draft capital or money there? The 49ers have not picked a cornerback in the first round since Mike Rumpf. That's how long it's been since the 49ers expended a first-round pick on a cornerback. They're not going to do it next year, most likely, because they do not have a first-round pick. They could trade back into the first round. I don't see them doing that with few draft picks, but I would hope that they would either spend big money on the best available free agents, which are to be determined at this point. We don't really know who's going to make it to free agency, or spend that second round pick on a cornerback, maybe even both. Because there's every possibility that Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore round into high-quality cornerbacks. But to count on that, if we don't see more from them in this season, would be a real mistake. The 49ers have depth along their defensive line. They have built that strength of the team. They have focused their efforts on a dominant defensive line. Without a bookend opposite of Nick Bosa, I'm just not sure that that defensive line can overcome the deficiencies that we have at cornerback. So my long-winded answer to that, Thomas, is yes, the 49ers should expend that type of money or draft capital, or quite frankly, both, in addressing the depth at cornerback. Joe Mama coming in the house. You guys remember the day we traded 3 first-round picks for a starting quarterback? Pepperidge Farms remembers. 49ers fans are clamoring to see Trey Lance this week. It happens every time there is an inconsistent game by Jimmy Garoppolo, and the game on Sunday in Seattle was most certainly one of those inconsistent games for Jimmy. It was bad Jimmy. Had some of those poor decisions that came out, and that really hurt the 49ers. You could point to special teams as well in being part of the 49ers struggles, but it was an ugly game on both sides of both phases of the ball. Defense did hold their own. It just got gassed toward the end. All right, let's get into our previously submitted questions, and then I will get back into the chat. Again, it is helpful in the chat if you type in the @RobSchuh. That way I know that it's a question directed toward me and not conversation happening back and forth between folks in the chat. If you want to submit your questions ahead of time, as a lot of these people did, either follow me on Twitter @TheLeftShoe and hit me there, or send it in to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. First one here came in via Twitter. What were some silver linings from the Seattle game that can boost our confidence going into Cincinnati? This one's from Karthik. Karthik, I know you're out there in the chat just saying what's up. All right, I had 3 positive takeaways. I did have to rack my brain for the third, but once I realized it, it was obvious to me. I should have seen it right away. Number 1, first and foremost, George M.F. Kittle. George Kittle is clearly still alive and well and operating in the San Francisco offense like gangbusters. I don't know whether it's that we use him so much as a run blocker and therefore can't get as much out of him in the pass game. But this game, when Debo was out and George became the primary target, all of a sudden he's there. He's foremost. He is the best receiving threat that we have on the field. And therefore it's a little bit perplexing as to why we can't balance this offense just a little bit more. I did say that with Debo being out, it offered the opportunity for other players to step up. Players that we will need to step up if we will get into the playoffs and if we want to make any type of a run. If you just have one receiving threat, other teams can do a lot of things schematically to really take that away. Debo Samuel makes it a little more challenging because you can get the ball to him in so many different ways. You can hand the ball off to Debo. You can get him on jet sweeps. You can, operate in the screen game, and he is a legit passing threat. He's a great wide receiver. So it's harder to take him away, but he is just one player. And if you can take away Debo Samuel, that was like 35% of the San Francisco 49ers offense. With George Kittle emerging, that's a bright spot. Is he capable of carrying this forward? Is he capable of that type of production when Debo Samuel is in the game as well? Can the 49ers spread the ball around a little bit more? That was a bright spot. The pass rush, we got after Russell Wilson. We had, 5 sacks on Sunday? I mean, it wasn't enough to get the win. The defense could not make up for the offensive struggles, the killer special teams issues, but we continue to see some flashes from players that are not named Nick Bosa. And quite frankly, if we're not going to get Dee Ford back this year, which I think is a toss-up at this point, We will need more from people opposite of Bosa. We will need Samson Ebukam to have greater pressures. We will need Charles Omenihu to continue to show those flashes that he has. And Jordan Willis got himself a sack on Sunday. I know he missed the first 6 games of the season. He may just be rounding back into game shape. That would be a welcome sign for the San Francisco 49ers so that it doesn't all fall on Nick Bosa's shoulders, because that's a lot of weight, even for a guy like Nick Bosa, who's built like a tank. The third positive I'm taking away as I hit my microphone here, Azeez Al-Shaair. Azeez is playing with his hair on fire. He's got a monster season shaping up. He had 16 tackles in that game, had that forced fumble in the goal line stand at the end of the game that gave the 49ers a chance, gave them hope. They just fell a few yards short. He almost came up with that killer interception. I would have challenged that. I have not brought myself to watch the game yet. It was very painful. I will have to watch some clips of it soon. But I just honestly, emotionally couldn't take it and decided that I saw enough in person that I could base my observations off of that. I would have challenged that play. I looked at it on the big screen over and over again, and he initially had the interception. The ball may have moved after that, but the ruling of a catch has been so inconsistent this year. That field position would have been a huge difference for the 49ers. I was upset that Kyle Shanahan chose not to challenge that one. It looks like we're going to lock him up early, which is a good thing, get ahead of some of the money he may be owed, because if we continue to let him play like this and then lock him up, it could be a more expensive contract. And that is what we have done more recently with the likes of George Kittle, Fred Warner, and it has cost us some pretty significant coin in the process. All right, I am getting back into the comments here to see if we've got some existing questions there. I see a super chat, which I am absolutely going to get to. Just want to make sure that I don't miss anything key in the process. All right, here we go with the super chat. Chris Royal coming in. If Jimmy didn't have such a problem working through his progressions, we'd be golden. We have so many weapons to throw to. You know, I can't quite frankly say definitively that it's Jimmy's inability to work through the progressions without sitting down with Kyle Shanahan and having him explain to me just exactly how the progressions go on each from play to play. But from a casual observer in watching film, Chris, I think you're absolutely right. That's what it seems like to those of us that have watched considerable snaps by Jimmy Garoppolo. And this frustrates me to no end because I see a team with 3 legitimate pass-catching threats. I think that George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk are very, very good receivers and capable down the field and outside the numbers. But we don't push the ball outside the numbers. We don't take very many shots down the field. And yet we turn the ball over at the same rate as teams who are pushing the ball down the field, who are getting those chunk plays. And I think it's Jimmy's shortcomings that we're talking about here. Him being comfortable over the middle. That sets up for Deebo and George Kittle feasting on yak yards because Kyle Shanahan dials up plays that get them the ball in space and allow them to run after the catch. That is what's missing from this offense. That is what I hope Trey Lance can bring to the equation. Can push the ball outside the numbers, can take those shots down the field. In particular, stress defenses in second and short in between the 40s, where you can have a play action deep shot. The defense has to recognize the run. They have to cover the run because it's second and short. But you're at an advantageous point of the field where you can take an end zone shot and potentially have those big chunk plays. Hopefully the 49ers get that when they make the move at quarterback, but it doesn't appear they'll be making that move anytime soon. I am not giving false hope about that. I do want to call out Texas Niners comment here because he is absolutely right. Who else had a good game? DJ Jones had a good game. You know I support Big Dave's Barbecue Sauce. That's DJ Jones's dad. And a portion of their proceeds go to charity, which is fantastic. Plus, DJ Jones and his pops seem like good people to begin with. So even if that went into their pockets, I'd be happy that I support them in that way. Hopefully you do as well, because it's killer barbecue sauce. That's some good barbecue sauce. All right, getting back into one of our previously submitted questions. This one coming in from Kevin O via Gmail. Again, that's 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Now, I've shortened some of these questions here, and Kevin's was one of them. And so we'll get into the entirety of it after I read the abbreviated portion. So here's the abbreviated question. Did the 49ers fail in their logic to spend so much on a raw rookie quarterback while still trying to win this year? In effect, asking if it was wrong to have spent so much on Jimmy Garoppolo while giving up so much to draft Trey Lance. Here's the entirety of the question with a little bit of emotion in it, you can tell. Well, the Niners' ceiling has been brought down a bit. Guess this brings back the ultimate question of, will Lance just sit on the bench like Mahomes? Ride or die with the low ceiling Jimmy? Could this be the reason why the Niners played so poorly in the first half of the season? Because they couldn't understand the trade up to 3, but still trying to be a win now team? You can feel the emotion in that question. And I'm with you here, Kevin, that to me, people who get upset with Jimmy being who Jimmy is, I'm not there. I get frustrated by who Jimmy is, but coming into the season, I thought I had a pretty good understanding of who Jimmy Garoppolo is, what he brings to the table, what his strengths are, and what he struggles with. And it seems that that's what we've seen so far this season as well, that we have seen him continue to be great at feasting over the middle. He continues to have a very quick release. He does seem to understand how to put the offense in good position to be successful. He sets up the run game pretty well. Where he struggles is he's a game manager that doesn't manage the game. He doesn't take deep shots, but he commits turnovers as if he does. And that's a problem. The 49ers made their error in the offseason, before the draft, before they decided to give up those 3 picks to take Trey Lance. The error was in keeping Jimmy around. It was in believing that you could both build for the future and legitimately compete for a Super Bowl. Now, they could have reset our expectations. They could have said that this is a good team, but we're trying to be a great team. They could have said we're a team that has a chance to make the playoffs this year, but we want to win Super Bowls in the future. If they had set that expectation at the beginning of this year, then we'd be right where they told us we'd be. 6-6, chance to make the playoffs, maybe make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. We've got some deep players on offense, some great players on defense. You could make a run with that. The playoffs in the NFL are an unpredictable thing. But instead, they really tried to sell that idea that we were a top contending team this year with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm, and that we were just going to take some picks for next year, but it wouldn't impact our ability to be competitive this year. It turns out we aren't using our first round pick, our second round pick, or our third round pick, because none of them can contribute this year. So yes, the 49ers made some colossal mistakes in the offseason in attempting to ride this season and prepare for the future, and used a lot of draft picks on players that just haven't been able to contribute on the field so far this season. So it is frustrating, but I still have hope for the future. I have not given up anything on what I believe Trey Lance can be when he finally makes it on the field. I don't know that that will be this season unless the 49ers are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and that would take a long time because of the seven seeds now existing for the wild card format. The 49ers are in the mix of a muddled NFC race, and most likely after that loss to Seattle, Kyle Shanahan's just going to cling even tighter to Jimmy Garoppolo because every game going forward means that much more. The 49ers need a win against Cincinnati this week. I think they would benefit from working Trey Lance into the game plan. Do I think Kyle Shanahan will do that? No. I think he will stick to Jimmy Garoppolo, stick to that play calling where he has one rhythm that he has to define, and that's how is the team attacking Jimmy Garoppolo, and try to win with Jimmy G. In a blowout, if the 49ers were to get behind significantly, we might see Trey Lance. But I'm not getting my hopes up anymore about those 5 to 10 snaps that I think Trey Lance should have been getting this entire time. I get a little fired up when I think about it. Let's get back into your comments. Let's some positivity immediately. I'm jumping out. Sean 951 Niners coming in from the 951. What is that? Inland Empire, baby. Little Southern California. We should win 4 of 5 games and get in the playoffs. Arizona will lose another game. So will Green Bay. We'll get the first round seed. Green Bay will get the first round seed. We're not afraid to play Tampa Bay, Arizona, or Dallas. They don't want to see us. Seattle game, flush it. On to Cincinnati. I love that positivity. I love the reflection that the 49ers are not scared of any of those teams. I don't think so at all. The 49ers, if they get into the playoffs, which there is a very, very good chance that they do, could make some noise, some legitimate noise. And I look forward to seeing it. 4 out of 5 games seems like a stretch for me. I struggle because I need to see us beat Cincinnati to get my confidence back. If we beat Cincinnati, I could see us winning 3 of those next 4. This one's going to be a tough test for me. That 3-headed monster, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, those are talented wide receivers. The 49ers do not have the horses in their stable to really defend those 3. If Joe Burrows plays and is close to 100%, the 49ers really are going to need to knock him around, get his confidence off so that he's not able to roast our secondary. I just don't know that we could keep up in that regard. The 49ers must play their complementary style of football, must get the run game going. Really need to focus on time of possession. The Bengals are another time of possession team. Don't laugh at Joe Mixon. That guy is a quality back, and they've been able to average above 31 minutes per game in time of possession themselves. So that will be the matchup to me. Can the 49ers play that mistake-free type of football, that complementary style of football where they really get rolling? If not, Cincinnati's going to be a tough matchup. If we beat Cincinnati this week, I'm with you. That 3 out of the next 4 seems pretty reasonable to me. All right, Karthik came in at Rob. Do you know the exact news about Debo? I couldn't watch the presser. Debo did not practice today. Here's the did not practice list as it came out. Let me just touch on Debo first because I got to pull up that sheet. So Debo did not practice today, but they are hopeful that he will be back at practice in some limited fashion tomorrow, which would be huge. It seems that we are trending towards Debo Samuel playing. Here's the did not practice list. Fred Warner and Marcel Harris, full participants at practice. That is great news for our linebacking core. Dre Greenlaw continues to be out with the groin, so he is not in that list of linebackers available. But here are the others. Trent Cannon, after that brutal concussion, still in concussion protocol. I'm just glad that it wasn't something more serious. I was there in Seattle, as you probably all know, and it was bleak. It was the first play of the game, right? Everybody's energy is hype. It took the air out of the stadium. A cart came on the field, and then it went away, and we got optimistic. Oh, maybe he's going to get up and walk off. No, the cart went away because they brought the ambulance full on out onto the field. I thought for sure it must have been a neck injury. It must have been something where he couldn't feel one of his extremities. I guess it was just having been unconscious on the field, thankfully. I hope that he is all right this week, but I'm just glad to know that it wasn't a serious long-term injury. So thoughts out to Trent Cannon for sure. Maurice Hurst continues to be out with the calf. Alex Mack, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams all had veteran days or rest of some sort. Elijah Mitchell in the concussion protocol as well, and a little bit of a knee issue coming out of the game on Sunday. That's the one to monitor for sure. Emmanuel Mosley with the ankle, probably out this week. Seems pretty definite he'll be out. Debo Samuel with the groin still did not practice, but again, is trending in the right direction. The only solace 49ers fans should have is that on the Bengals side of it, the do not practice list wasn't all that much prettier. So it is two banged up teams coming off of big losses that really hurt each of them, really, really needing a win. This sets up for a very exciting matchup on Sunday. Absolutely. Prince KD, thanks for answering my question, Rob. Yeah, this season kind of a roller coaster, but Trey got a bright future. He just needs to meld his arm and running ability into a super weapon. You're very welcome, Prince. And yes, it is Trey Lance, his ability to do what Jimmy does, plus being the ability to push the ball down the field, outside the numbers, take the deep shots. Plus being the legs, the ability to extend a play outside the pocket, to be able to run glorious runs. I mean, I'm looking for, Steve Young, John Elway type of production within the Shanahan offense. Let's go, Trey Lance. All right, looking in the comments here, people not confident about some of those matchups, but Karthik pointing out with Green Bay will always fall away in the championship game. Let's hope that we play Green Bay in the NFC Championship again. Ben from the Camper Report, Benjamin coming in, Tampa would crush us with all the wide receiver weapons. Ben, that's why I'm nervous about Cincinnati. This three-headed monster on Sunday is going to be tough. JC is with me here. Really, I'm literally scared of every one of those games. LOL. Yes, it sets up to be a tough schedule going forward because the 49ers dropped that game to Seattle. It was a winnable game against a mediocre team, and we could not put our foot on their necks. And therefore, every game became that much more important. Every week became that playoff matchup. And it is on to Cincinnati. Getting back into some of the previously submitted questions. This one comes in from the notorious GAV, Gavin, hailing from Wales. What's up, Gav? How you doing? I saw you in the comments earlier. I paraphrase this one. Do we owe the resurgence of our season to John York? In its entirety, Gavin asks, how much of a turning point was John York showing up at training when we were 2-5? Should John York show up at training every week? By the way, training and practice, in case you don't follow Ted Lasso, training and practice are synonymous there. And in case you don't follow on Twitter, I have been compared to Coach Beard of Ted Lasso, which I take as an immense compliment for my handsome beard. Here's the rest of the question. Do we owe the resurgence of our season to John York? Is John York the real MVP of the 49ers season? I do think it mattered, Gavin. Maybe not for the same reason others may suspect. I think it was a common narrative on Twitter that John York came in and laid down the law for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. He said, listen, boys, you better shape up or ship out. Well, that doesn't match up with my impression of who John York is. I had the privilege of meeting him for just a split second. So this is not a terribly informed opinion, but informed nonetheless. I have shaken hands, whatever you feel more comfortable with. John York and I did shake hands. I met him, spoke with him briefly, and my impression of him was a much softer spoken billionaire. We're not talking about a business leader, cutthroat businessman who just takes everything by the reins. Dr. York is a little easier going. He married into the DeBartolo family. I just don't get the impression that he would have come in and laid down the law and been that hard line in the sand. I'm willing to bet a large sum of money that he was there in support, that he provided some reassuring statements, probably made both of their seats feel a little bit cooler at the time because, let's be honest, it had gotten pretty bleak in San Francisco during those weeks. My guess is that he said, listen, John, Kyle, we knew what we were getting into when we signed on to trade what we did to move up to 3. We knew we were risking a lot. We knew we were drafting someone who was very raw and would need time to develop. That's why we signed on to keep Jimmy Garoppolo around and pay him $27 million. We didn't want to commit to Jimmy Garoppolo for more years, so we couldn't balance out that money. We couldn't spread that cap hit over future years. We couldn't ask him to take a salary cut. We thought we'd be a competitive team this year. We kind of are. We are in the hunt. But at the time that he showed up to training or practice, it didn't look that way. It looked like we were reeling. It looked like we were struggling. I'm sure he said, hey, this isn't the way we pictured this season going, but the future is still bright. We are still looking at this as a long-term plan. And I'm guessing that took some of the pressure off of John and Kyle. And I'm glad, because since then, the 49ers have absolutely rebounded. Getting back into the comments to see what you all are bringing. Matt Cook, just with the compliment. I appreciate it. I try to put out that great content that Niner faithful deserve. Here we go. Ramiro coming in. Why does Kyle not make some plays where we have both Trey and Jimmy on the field just to give the defense something to think about? Trey can run or pass. This seems like a no-brainer. Kyle Shanahan seemed to indicate that it's him, that he struggles to call plays, get into a rhythm as a play caller when both quarterbacks are on the field or rotating them in and out. Now, this is different than the rotation. What Ramiro is referencing here would be much more of the Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, or Drew Brees and Taysom Hill, where you have both on the field at the same time. I'm open to whatever gets Trey on the field. I would prefer that it be just Trey, Jimmy on the sideline when he's out there, because I think now you're talking 11-on-11 football, where the defense has to account for everybody potentially having the football, all of the skill positions, including the quarterback, including his ability to scramble outside of the pocket, to have direct runs. It's flummoxing not to see it out there. I would enjoy seeing both he and Jimmy out there at the same time. Anything that gets Trey in. Let's see. Steve-O Supremo here looks to be talking about the same topic. Texas, most don't know we only have 2 active quarterbacks on the roster. If Trey comes in on packages and gets hurt a third time, we have a practice guy backing up Jimmy. That's an interesting call out, that because of the fact that Nate Sudfeld is on the practice squad and we just have the 2 on the active roster, that Kyle Shanahan might be a little more conservative. To me, that's not enough of an excuse to not get the most talented guy out there. John Garcia, the 49ers have a lot of potential. The offense will start clicking, and the defense, you're the best, Rob. Let's go Niners. Hey, I hope that we start clicking, because when it's all working well, isn't it a beautiful thing to behold? Aren't the San Francisco 49ers a work of art when everything is clicking? It's just when we make that first mistake and they start to snowball one into another, we get behind and down in distance because of a holding penalty or a false start. We have a drive going and Jimmy doesn't see a linebacker, throws a pick. These things are critical, and the 49ers don't appear to be a good enough team to overcome those types of deficiencies, to overcome those types of mistakes. This is why I believe against the Bengals, the focus has to be that complementary football style. It has to be mistake-free on offense, and especially on special teams. We cannot afford to have special teams miscues. The third phase of this game must be beneficial for the 49ers. It cannot hinder them as it has. Sean951, they claim Debo didn't practice today, but I saw the video from Lombardi showing QBs throwing, and Debo was in the background in pads moving around. I wonder if that counts as working on the side with a trainer. You know, being out there is completely different than being, not dressed. It sounded as if he may practice tomorrow, and so I am optimistic that we can get him back out there for Sunday. Javier Rios coming in. If he's not ready, we shouldn't play him. We have plenty of weapons. Jimmy just needs to be sharp. Agree wholeheartedly that if you're talking about Debo and he's not ready, don't risk re-injury. Please do not risk re-injury. All right, Victor coming in. Victor Mendoza. Rob, do you believe the 49ers can hold on to a playoff spot? I do. This is setting up to where 9-8 may get you into the playoffs. Matt Mayoko wrote an article this morning detailing a way in which the 49ers could end up 8-9 and still make the playoffs. That's why the loss Sunday hurt so badly, because it set up to secure a spot for the 49ers. They would have had a distinct advantage in making the playoffs had they beaten the team they were supposed to beat in Seattle. Because they didn't, they're hanging on to it, hanging by a thread, but the path is still very clear. The 49ers, it would appear, if they win 3 out of the next 5, are set up pretty well to make the playoffs at 9-8, which is crazy. I think I'd rather have 10-7 because that assures us no tiebreakers. I do not want the tiebreakers. The Camper report coming in. Jamar Chase is going to ball out against us and T. Higgins. I don't know who we have to cover him. I do not know if we will be able to withstand the 3-headed monster that exists in Cincinnati. I know I want Jamar Chase on my fantasy team to have very few points. I want San Francisco's defense to shut him down, whether it's by attacking the head of the beast and hitting Burrows, or if we are able to scheme some way, and we'll touch on this later, some way to cover all those weapons. Ellis 10 at Rob Schuh. I think all of us 49ers fans can admit we are extremely frustrated with the sloppy play of the 49ers, all 3 phases. If you had a clean cut as a head coach, what would you do to correct the mistakes? If I were the head coach, goodness gracious. Man, that's a tough question, Ellis. I think you have to simplify. With the 49ers making the level of mistakes that they do on a regular basis, my instant question becomes, is it an overly complicated system that we're attempting to run on a regular basis? Shanahan is notoriously a perfectionist. Is he demanding too much from his teams? Are they just incapable? In years past, where you had substantially more practice time for offenses, maybe you could run an offense that was as complex as the one we do now. With fewer practices, with fewer practice reps, with fewer mental reps, are guys just not able to be as comfortable with all of this motion, all of these intricate plays, and therefore unable to execute on a consistent basis? I believe we have the talent on the roster. I would want to keep many of the wrinkles that Shanahan has in his offense. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful offense to watch, but I'd try to simplify it. Keep it simple, stupid. That would be my motto. Probably a little too simple of an answer for that type of a question. Looking for anything else to respond to in the chat here. Jamie Bryant, I hope Aaron at 49ers First Takes is okay. We have to look out for our fellow 49ers faithful. We are all family. I hope for a full recovery, brother. That is absolutely, I want to echo that sentiment and give a shout out to Aaron over at 49ers First Takes. Just give him my well wishes. Hope that all is good and that I am here for anybody that needs someone to lean on. I think we all should be there for each other. That's why I try to put out positivity, because you never know what somebody's got going on in their life. You don't know what's going on in my life. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm fair game for you to poke fun at. I'm fair game for you to throw some shots at me, but you don't know what's happening in my personal life. I might be at a point where those shots cut a little deeper than I'd like, right? So that's why I stick to positivity. I'm okay with lighthearted ribbing, but anytime people take real personal shots, anything like that, I'm not saying that's in any way the case here. But it's why I tend toward positivity. So, Jamie, I appreciate you keeping it towards a positive and having those well wishes. Appreciate it, Jamie. Daniel Martinez, keys to beat Cincinnati: run the ball, time of possession, get Kittle rolling again, mistake-free, no interceptions, no special teams blunders, and the defense must rush the quarterback since our cornerbacks are at least suspect. Coaching, better play calling. Daniel, that was very well summed up. Very well summed up. Eric Sully with a question I'll answer quickly before going back to the previously submitted questions. Who's John York? Is that the dad? Yes. John York married to Denise DeBartolo York, father of Jed York. He owned the team for a short time after Eddie DeBartolo left. He was the CEO at that point. We've got a couple of super chats. Got to get to them before we go to the previously submitted questions. Chris Royal coming in. I think Shanahan saying that is a cop-out. You can't tell me that it would be a huge adjustment to put Lance in on the RPOs. It is to some degree. The play calling rhythm, I understand, but not using him in limited circumstances, much like the what you're talking about, RPO, that is somewhat unforgivable. That is, if when we got in down toward the goal line, you can't tell me that Lance would not have stressed the defense in ways that Jimmy did not. So I would have to agree that there are instances where it's a cop-out to say that Shanahan struggles to put Trey Lance in. In others, in the general ebb and flow of the game, I can understand that a little bit more. And I actually appreciated Shanahan sharing something he struggled with because I felt that it was taking some level of accountability. And I want more and more accountability from Coach Shanahan. So I'm not going to nitpick on him for that. But I see what you're saying here, Chris, and I think there's merit to it. Luke Luna coming in with the super chat. Give Jimmy more freedom if the run ain't working. This one, I go back and forth on, Luke. You have to be able to attack the defense at its weak points. Cincinnati sets up to struggle against defending the middle of the field. Their linebacking core is weak. That's how you should attack them. However, the 49ers' identity is running the ball, and everything builds off of that. So you certainly have to attempt to stick to your identity, regardless of what the other team is doing to stop it or attempting to stop it. But I do think Jimmy will have some opportunities in this game. It will set up such that he should be able to complement the run game. But my take would be exactly that he needs to complement the run game and not eliminate it. Texas Niner, I see you in here. Love the channel, Rob. I'll watch the rest of the video later. My Bengal meat needs to be flipped on the pit. He's grilling up Bengal tigers. I love it. Going to use some of my DJ Jones barbecue sauce. Indeed. What a wonderful barbecue sauce to marinate your Bengal meat in. Ellis 10 coming in at Rob Schuh. I have an idea on 4th and 1. Bring trips left. Put Kittle alone on the right side with the cornerback. Have Kittle slant in to block down on the linebacker and let Trey Lance go one-on-one with a cornerback. Goodness gracious, Ellis. Have you called Coach Shanahan to let him know this plan? That sounds like a winning play design to me. Maybe we don't need Kyle Shanahan after all. Maybe we just need Ellis in there. Yes. Yes, I love that plan. Love that plan. JB, that's it. Yes, I am spitting here. I am. Getting back into a couple of our remaining previously submitted questions. Here we go. Has the 49ers offense improved over the course of the season? Came in from Kyodai via Twitter. Here was the original question in its entirety. It felt like what could go wrong did in fact go wrong, particularly for the 49ers offense and special teams versus Seattle. The defense made play after game-changing play as they improved over the course of the season. Can the same be said about the offense? Grind you down, run style, but nada from the quarterback. So it is interesting. I'd say the answer to this is yes and no. I agree with you that the defense has made strides this season. And it's fair to question, has the offense done the same? I'd say the answer is yes and no in my book. We do have to acknowledge the loss of Raheem Mostert cannot be overstated. Early in the year, the run game struggled. You heard Kyle Shanahan say it. They had to throw out an entire chapter of the playbook because they didn't think they had someone that could execute the same runs that Mostert is able to hit on the edges. But it was you mentioned it was in finding that run game, finding that identity as a run-first team with Elijah Mitchell that helped the 49ers find themselves again. I think it's interesting to note that the struggles in the pass game, we seem to just be able to get the ball to one dominant weapon. To this point, it was Debo. It was Debo all year long. Debo. But Debo's out. All of a sudden, George Kittle comes back to life. But we still just have one dominant weapon for the entirety of the game. It's concerning to me to have so much of the offense run through one single player, whether it's Debo or Kittle. Debo, less concerning because you can get the ball to him in multiple different ways. It's harder to take him away as a threat. Even if defenses scheme completely around stopping Debo, because of how versatile he's been so far this year, it's tough to do. But if a defense only has one player to stop, it makes it easier. And so far this year, that's what the 49ers have been. One weapon each week. One weapon to complement the run game, which the run game is working well. The run game doesn't need too many adjustments to it. We just need to stay healthy. We need to keep a healthy stable of backs and pray that Elijah Mitchell remains healthy and is able to finish out the season. That, to me, takes care of the run game. But the Kittle emergence is potentially the start of something. Maybe now that Kittle has come out, maybe now when Debo comes back, we have two legitimate offensive weapons in the pass game. I'd still like to see more balance. I'd still like to see Brandon Ayuk get more runtime than he has. But man, do we need at least that second threat. So I'm looking for Kittle to keep up that positive momentum this week against Cincy. Karthik is with me. Kittle and Debo are both very versatile. Yes, Mr. Nobody is optimistic. The 49ers will be full go hitting the playoffs. That is key. Health going into the playoffs is paramount. Paul Perryman, Kyle keeps running players into the ground. He does tend to stick with one player. It's true with Elijah Mitchell, and we have certainly seen an extensive injury list pile up for Elijah with so many carries. And Debo Samuel, how long did you expect Debo to stay healthy with the amount of usage that he had? Let's be honest. People want to say, well, Debo is injury prone. I don't care who you are. I don't care how durable you are in the NFL. When you get used as much as Debo got used this season, guys get dinged up. The human body is not meant to endure that type of a beating on a week-to-week basis. Not at all. Luke Luna coming in at Rob Schuh. Each play, if you have noticed, when Jimmy gets moving outside of the pocket or running, he's good. I think Kyle has a lot of control over his play. That's what I mean by freedom. All right, we got to go back to the previous comment because clearly that tags on. Maybe there's a couple of them. All right, here we go. Maybe this one explains it. But then you lose games against teams that can't stop the run. I just think Kyle is too controlling over how a play plays out. He believes in his plays so much, he tells Jimmy just how to do them. So that goes back to Kyle's controlling nature, very specific offensive plays. He does provide the answers to the test to Jimmy and then expects Jimmy to just get all the right answers. I think there is a lot of pressure in there. That said, it would seem that it's not too terribly hard to execute this offense. That would be my take on it. What we see from Jimmy is just inconsistency in that area. If we could get more consistency out of the quarterback position, if we had a true game manager or a quarterback who wasn't a game manager and got the chunk plays, one of those two within this offense would seem to be a little bit better than where we're currently sitting, which is stuck in the middle again at 6-6. Getting back to the last couple of previously submitted questions. This one I like. This is very creative here, and I want to call it out. Jacob L. coming in from Twitter. Why don't they run K'Wan Williams at outside corner with Mosley out? You could run Jimmy Ward in the slot and Hufanga at safety. So this one, I love it. Yes, my answer is yes. Get your best players out on the field. This strikes me as next level scheming, the type of scheming that great defensive coaches do. It strikes me as a Bill Belichick move, that you would move the chess pieces around to make sure that you have your best defenders out on the field. Jimmy Ward has elite cover skills. You can watch him blanket tight ends. In this past offseason, he went through and showed himself on highlight films blanketing tight ends on Instagram. It was hilarious. He was talking all sorts of trash about how tight ends can't get to 30 yards on him. They can't get to 40 yards on him. That it takes someone like an elite tight end in the league to get 50 yards on him. So that one, I think, is spot on. Jimmy has elite cover skills, and Tartan Hufanga might not be as good in the back as the safeties as Jimmy and Jaquaski would be together, but you have to measure that drop off from Jimmy and Jaquaski down to Jaquaski and Hufanga versus the drop off at corner with Dante Johnson. To me, the drop off to Dante Johnson is bigger. That's the weak point. When you have Josh Norman and Dante Johnson, K'Wan Williams is solid at the slot. But if you can't move players around to get the best 5 cover guys out there, what are you doing? What are you doing? Our second to last question here. Would the 49ers consider trading Debo, Kittle, or Ayuk? They seem to lack an offense that can take advantage of all three. Kevin O coming in from Gmail. I always allow that second question when it comes in via Gmail because I love the submissions via 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Here was the entirety of the question, which I truncated. Well, it's clear Debo is the main reason why Kittle sometimes has down games, which is acceptable since Debo is just playing like an MVP. More than likely, all three of Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk will be sticking around next year. However, could you foresee the Niners trading away one of those three to recoup draft picks? Not sure Trey will ever throw enough to make all three volume catchers worth their eventual contract. My answer to this is I wouldn't be shocked if they made a trade. I don't think I could be shocked by any trades after the DeForest Buckner trade occurred. I did not see that coming. Did not see that coming by a country mile, folks. But I do not think it's likely that we trade any of these three. I see this as this offense will begin to open up with Trey Lance at quarterback, and there will be more opportunities. More time on the field by the offense means more plays, which means more completions. I refer to Trey Lance as Jimmy plus plus in that I believe he's capable of doing what Jimmy does. In college, he was very tight with the ball, did not turn the ball over, went an entire season without an interception. So he's capable of playing a bit more of that game manager type, but he has the arm to be that plus down the field, outside the numbers. You can say right now his arm's his weakness because he's not throwing with enough touch. He's not completing the short passes. I have faith that he will get that worked out. I think he's just in his head about trying to rework his mechanics in this year he had away from football. Once he gets back out there for extended periods of time, I have no doubt that he will be able to pick that up and be able to then complement the short passing game, the over-the-middle passing game with the outside the numbers and the deep shots. And then the legs, the ability to extend plays, the ability to shirk tacklers, the ability to get outside of the pocket, the ability to run around the edges, the ability to run through the center of the defense if need be. Again, I think this offense definitely opens up when we make that shift to Trey. His skill set matches up a bit more completely with all three of those pass catchers. I think that there will be enough balls to feed all those mouths once they get Trey Lance in there. And yes, I just heard myself say that line out loud, and I'm wishing that I didn't. All right, heading to the comments. Before, there's one last previously submitted question that we will end on. It's a throwback. Here we go. Steve Avia just coming in to say, what's up? How you doing? Yes. Looking into the comments here. All right. Mark, I don't think I've gotten you in here before. Mark coming in. Kyle needs to get out of his own way. Total BS. He can't incorporate Trey packages into his offense. It's total BS that he can't incorporate Trey into the offense on some level. I get that maybe what we saw in the preseason was a pipe dream with guys rotating in and out, series to series. I get it. That, to me, is tough to replicate in a real game against elite defenses because you do want some sort of a rhythm. But to not be able to work him in at all, Mark, I am with you. That is BS. Silverado Kev was a guest of the program very recently and will be back again. I love collaborating with Silverado Kev. Just coming in to say what's up. What's good, Silverado Kev? Nice to see you here in the chat. All right, Steve coming back in with more good stuff. I bet the D-line shows up big versus the Natty offense. I'm guessing that's short for Cincinnati. I think Bosa craves playing against his college rivals. I cannot wait to see a special celebration from Mr. Bosa. I would love to see him just hit Joe. Just hit his old buddy Joe. They're friends off the field, but that doesn't mean that you cannot just abuse him on the field. That to me is one of the keys to the game, is our ability to hit Joe Burrows. Hit him once, hit him twice, hit him all over the place on the field. All right, Steve back in. Dante Johnson still being on the 49ers after so many years off and on again says a lot about ownership. It also says a lot about Dante Johnson. We give him a lot of grief, but he deserves a lot of credit too for staying in the NFL as long as he has. Nobody of Niner faithful wants to see him starting, but he's a team guy. He's on and off the roster a lot. He's a special teams player. It's a low ceiling for him, but he's also a high floor guy. You know what you're getting. It's not great, but you know what you're getting. I know that's not words of encouragement for 49er faithful. Nick from the Mo coming in just to say, here you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Raymond Martinez heard the line I was talking about. Yes, he did. I heard myself say it, and I couldn't retract it. It was too late. Too late. Emu coming in at the left shoe. What makes you feel like Kyle will activate Trey? 49ers are headed for another loss, man. Well, he doesn't need to be activated. He's been active on all the game days. He's our only backup quarterback, as pointed out earlier. So he's there, and I watched him throw before the Seattle game. And I'll tell you, I think he's in his head about his throwing mechanics. That was the impression that I got. I watched him, that four-man rotation where they have a receiver on either side, and then quarterback throws it to the receiver. They toss it to the other quarterback, throws it to the wide receiver, toss it to the quarterback. When they were doing that, Trey missed on a couple of short, easy throws, the kind that Jimmy flourishes with. Soft, short, and Trey missed a couple. And after missing them, was practicing the throwing motion, trying to get back to a snap of the wrist. And I do think that he's in his head about that. And it's no wonder. The guy spent the vast majority of the last year focused on adjusting his throwing motion. Went to all sorts of quarterback gurus to try and get his throwing motion just to where he wanted it for the pro day. So when the lights come on, when the pressure's out there, I guess I'm not surprised that's a challenge for him. And under duress, that's typically where people revert to older bad habits. So that to me is probably what Kyle Shanahan is holding on to as far as his fears in believing that Jimmy gives the 49ers a better chance to win. But I just have to trust that Kyle is doing everything within his power to win games. That's my core underlying belief. Kyle Shanahan wants to win in the NFL and will do anything he believes will help him win. He watches practices, and his belief is that Jimmy right now gives them the better chance. It's hard for me to dispute that with any available information that I have. Anything I say to dispute it is pure speculation. Would I like to see Trey Lance? Yes. Do I think he would be a more exciting prospect and open up more of this offense that could make the 49ers actually a viable candidate to make a run in the playoffs? Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. I also trust the head coach is trying to do what he can to win games. I realize with how this season has gone, I may be in the minority with that. Tommy Hugsley just saying, cut D Ford. I can't say that. I wish the guy had nothing but the best, man. He's struggling with a back injury. Think about having a back injury and think about playing in the NFL at all. How violent of a sport that is. Now add on a back injury. I just can't wish him anything but the best. Anything but the best. Luke Luna, 27, Dante Johnson, is going to get an interception this week, or Norman, and possibly a second from a safety. Burrow will give them plenty of opportunity. He slings it all over the field. We had a prediction for a Jimmy Ward interception earlier in the comments. Now we've got one for Dante Johnson, Josh Norman. Let's get another peanut punch so that Josh Norman can stay as the league leader in forced fumbles, where he currently sits. You just take the good with the bad when you're talking about Josh Norman, right? All right, Steve, back in. Agreed, brother. Dante's been a staple because he has the best availability. You can't dispute it. The guy is constantly on the roster because he's able to stay healthy. He's able to operate in the defense at a respectable level, maybe at times slightly below respectable, but at an average enough level that he's a valuable piece of the team. Better than turning to, an undrafted rookie free agent at this point. I know that's not music to 49er faithful's ears, but you take what you can get when the defensive backs are so thin. Paul Perryman coming in. Dante Johnson is as good a defensive back as Jimmy is a quarterback. Slightly below average. Okay, maybe Dante is a little worse. Yeah, that could be a little bit of hyperbole considering Jimmy is one of the 32 starters in the league. And I think even Jimmy detractors would say he probably would start for one of the other 32 teams if he were cut by San Francisco, let alone traded. I think we'll see next year that, yes, in fact, people do still value Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he will get traded. I think that will surprise a lot of 49er faithful to know that he has some trade value. All right, Steve-O Supremo, the legs, LOL. No quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl running. Young had 300 the year he won. All the great quarterbacks, Rodgers, Mannings, Favre, Brady, Montana, were not running quarterbacks. So the hype on Lance intrigues me. So I agree in this premise that when I say plus, what I mean is the first thing he needs to be able to do is operate the offense. He needs to be a pocket passer first and foremost. The first plus being the deep shots, throwing outside the numbers. That second plus is about his legs. So that is extending the plays, but still looking to throw first, being able to take advantage of his strong arm, throw back across the body, and those throws that you're not supposed to make unless you have a cannon for an arm. I still think that his ability to run, although I don't want him running for 800, 1,000 yards in a season, I think that the NFL is changing in that regard. To compare it to 30 years ago, is probably a stretch, right? I mean, you look at how it has evolved just in the last 10 years. So I think more relevant are the players you're looking at from this era. And it's still true that you don't want someone, or no one has had success with someone running first. So I agree in that regard that yes, it is drafting. It is passing from the pocket. Passing from the pocket. Harold, just with the Bosa. We need a big game from Bosa. We do need a big game from Bosa. NorCal refrigeration. Bengals have mega team speed, and the Niners struggle with it. Again, it sets up well for the Bengals offense against the Niners defense. It is tough, real tough. Luke Luna. Well, Trey was a running back until high school. This is why Jimmy is here, to give this kid time to develop more and more. Lance is made of high characteristics, and he will learn schemes and mechanics. Luke, I am right there with you. Right there with you. Emu, this one is, it's a little too early to say this. I think my belief was, that Mac Jones would be the better quarterback right away, which is evidenced by what you say here. Mac Jones was the right choice. Open your eyes and look at the Patriots. I mean, they won their last game with him attempting 3 passes. So let's not rewrite history and say he's lighting the world on fire. He's operating extremely well within what he's asked to do. And you could imagine that same thing being true within Kyle Shanahan's offense. If we had moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Mac Jones would have been the pick. He would have been a cheaper, more efficient version of Jimmy G. one that could potentially stay healthy. That would have been a good move. You could have reallocated those cap dollars of Jimmy's salary and put them over toward players that benefited this defense. We could have added cornerbacks. We could have added another edge rusher. But once we stuck with Jimmy, I like Lance for what he brings future value. Future value. I think Lance, the sky is the limit. Ken Fashion Journey just coming in saying, hi, Rob, and all Niners faithful watching. Greetings to all. I like the positivity, so I am throwing that in there. All right, Mr. Nobody talking a little bit of trash, and it's friendly, so I'll bring it in. Too many of you think the NFL is Madden. You're so wrong about that. I do have to agree that anyone who is basing their premises off of what they see within the Madden video game may be seeing things a little differently than how they actually operate within the NFL. You know, this is a business that is very cutthroat. This is a business where people's livelihoods are on the line. If you thought about how you feed your family, how your friends feed their families, if you employed a bunch of people that you really enjoy being around, people you consider to be friends, and the decisions you made on a weekly basis impacted their abilities to feed their families, you might act a little more conservatively as well. It's why all the analytics are pushing us towards no more kickers, go for it on all fourth downs. But coaches are very slow to adopt that, because if they're wrong about it, they get fired. Their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, all their friends can lose their jobs as well. And there's no guarantee that you get a second chance in the NFL. Looking at the comments for a couple more before we get to our last. All right, Andre coming in. Here's a crazy one. If we're short of a running back, Trey Lance, I love it. If we are down, which it's risky right now. We are thin, paper thin at running back because Elijah Mitchell, concussion protocol. Trent Cannon, concussion protocol. Jeff Wilson Jr. apparently nursing some type of lingering knee issue from the procedure he had on I believe it was an MCL injury he got while getting up from a chair in preseason. That was unfortunate, but apparently still flaring up on him. You need to get creative. If you do not get creative with Trey Lance, what else are you going to do? Debo's just coming off an injury. I'm not wild about the idea of riding him for too many carries. You do not want to re-injure Debo Samuel. Priority number one. Ooh, I like this Harold calling out. It's Pro Bowl voting time. Get out there and support your Niners, people. Please vote Debo for Pro Bowl, MVP, whatever. Get Kittle in there. Get Trent Williams in there. Let's get Juice in there. Who else does it? Nick Bosa deserves to be in there. Man, we got a lot of potential Pro Bowlers. A lot of potential Pro Bowlers. Mark pointing out cover 2 handles the Bengals receivers. Get those 2 high safeties out there. Take away the deep ball. Force Joe Burrows to play more like Jimmy Garoppolo. That could be a recipe for success. Meniscus is the Jeff Wilson injury. I believe that is the MCL. I believe. Ellis 10 coming in. What's your thoughts on using Juice more in the backfield? Maybe double up with Kittle also. I love it. I love getting Juice more involved. I see it as a problem, much like George Kittle. When he's heavily involved in the run game, he doesn't get involved elsewhere. So when he's involved in run blocking, then you don't see him in the pass game. Then you don't see him, coming out of the backfield with any carries. But he is a deadly weapon when he is used. Bryant Culp coming in. At Rob, who would you like the 49ers to play in the playoffs? Cowboys, Packers, Bucks? I would love to see a 49ers-Cowboys matchup for the first game of the playoffs. How about that? Muhammad is with me. The Cowboys. Yes, indeed. We do also match up well with Green Bay. Tommy is right there, but I cannot throw that comment up. Tommy, that one, unless that was a typo, please don't use that one in the comments. And yes, Tampa Bay, horrible matchup. Absolutely horrible matchup for sure. Getting to the last question that was previously submitted before we see if there are any more comments to close out on. This one's a throwback, and I'm sorry to do it to you because it brings back some painful memories to me as well. This one is, why didn't Frank Gore get the ball and goal to go in Super Bowl, whatever that one was when we played the Ravens? Why a screen to Dixon, 3 fades to Crabtree? Why? I haven't heard a good answer yet. Yeah, still not over it, JD. JD, you and me both, buddy. I meant to grab it out of the little display case I have over there, my Super Bowl ticket for New Orleans that year. Unfortunately, Jay, I was seated up in the corner end zone, that corner end zone, where those 4 plays unfolded. It was painful to watch. I was there with my dad, and we thought there was a miracle brewing. We thought the 49ers were about to complete the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, that they had floundered about for the beginning of that game, but it was going to end in glorious fashion. We sat right there in that corner, and we watched the car accident happen over and over and over. The worst for me is when Harbaugh ran up the sidelines and called that timeout that I believe would have been the quarterback keeper for Cap, whether it was a delay, whatever it was, it looked like he could have scored on that one. But we called the timeout. Frank Gore came out of the game. That was terrible. I think Jim Harbaugh, a little bit like Kyle Shanahan, suffers a bit from that big game nerve syndrome. Very much the same way that Kyle does. If you've ever played high stakes poker or anything that's really intense like that, you know what that pressure feels like. It is very unique. Your brain is not operating in the same fashion. And I think there are people who are just better in those moments. And unfortunately, in the Super Bowl for Jim Harbaugh, I think he had a little bit of the gears seizing up in his brain, because if he had just allowed that play out, I think we would have been okay. Had he just run the ball with Frank Gore, he had been unstoppable on that drive. Very frustrating to look back on. But I take solace, 49er faithful. I do not go to the negative. You know this. I take solace that Super Bowl loss, the Super Bowl loss in Miami, those things fuel us, faithful. They are what will make the next Super Bowl victory feel so good, because we have recent pain to base that feeling off of. It's all about the difference between your lowest lows and your highest highs, and those were some low lows. That is for sure. Paul Perryman coming in with a good comment, looking for a couple to close out on. It's about that time, Niner faithful. Paul saying, with the ever-increasing physicality, do you think it's harder and harder for a team to sustain smash-mouth football throughout a 17-game season? I think it is, no doubt. And these changes you're seeing with players being able to come off of IR, being able to go up and down from the practice squad, all these changes emanated from COVID restrictions. But they are very beneficial for how violent the game is, and how 53-man rosters did not seem flexible enough for teams to maintain through a 16-game season, let alone adding another game to make it the 17-game. So I would say that those changes will stick around going forward. And the NFL will look to create ways for teams to build additional depth. And it will be needed. Because yes, in order to play 17 games of NFL football, there are going to be a lot of injuries. It is just a violent sport in that regard. Looking through the comments, Steve O. Supremo, Rob, my first year watching film. Do you watch film? I do. I try to watch film on a regular basis. I signed up for the NFL Game Pass, which gives me the opportunity to rewatch games in like 30, 35 minutes. That's great. I don't like paying the NFL for that, in addition to all my money they get from NFL Shop and everything else. But I love the NFL, so I'm okay supporting billionaires, even though that's frustrating to say. And then they also give you the all 22 film. That's the big one to get those various angles. You can look at a play and see whether a receiver was actually open or was it just an optical illusion. You can see when a progression is missed if you understand the basic premise of how that progression might go. You can't really say for certain without confirming with Kyle Shanahan, who designed the play, but you can often follow the quarterback's eyes as they go through. So yes, I do, and I'm always looking to watch more because I think in watching that film, we all become more informed football players. Brandon coming in. Rob, smash the Bengals for me. Go Colts. Brandon, our resident Colts fan, we appreciate the support. We will do our best to try and beat the Bengals for you all. Steve coming in. Rob, who would you rather rematch in the Super Bowl, the Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs? That's a tough one. That really is. I have grown to really, really like Lamar Jackson. And while I really appreciate Patrick Mahomes' physical gifts on the field, I don't find his personality to be as charming. Maybe it's the State Farm commercials that I think are cheesy, but I just like Lamar Jackson better. So I wouldn't want to beat Lamar Jackson. I hope Lamar Jackson gets himself a Super Bowl ring, and I wouldn't want to take it away from him. The more recent pain is the Chiefs. I'm going to go with beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl would be the sweetest. The sweetest. Jorge coming in with an interesting twist, saying, I'm new to your channel. I wanted to ask what made you become a Niner fan. First and foremost, Jorge, thank you for joining the channel. Thank you for arriving. We love it here with 49er faithful coming in regularly. I started following the Niners in the mid-'80s. I grew up in Massachusetts, moved out to the Bay Area. My family moved in the mid-'80s. 85, 86, and my dad started getting tickets to Candlestick Park to go watch the Niners play. I was 8 years old. As an 8-year-old, going to my first football games and watching Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, forget about it. I was enthralled by the product on the field. I had no choice but to become a devout member of the 49er faithful, and I have been one ever since. I've had the privilege of attending over 100 games in person, most of those at Candlestick Park, fair number at Levi's, and then on this map behind me, you can see the NFL stadiums that I am checking off. It's my bucket list to hit them all. Some of them are now stadiums that have been closed down, but I intend to hit every one that I can to go see my Niners. They only count if I go see the Niners. I did have to go see, admittedly, I'd been to the Coliseum, Oakland Coliseum, to see the A's play. I had never gone to a Raiders game there. It was the last season there. I had to go watch the Raiders play the Chiefs. It was the last game that any NFL stadium had the dirt ring of the infield in there. I thought that was very fitting, a very fitting game to be at. Rohit coming in at Rob Schuh. Is zone coverage the best way to beat Cincy? Like you rush 5 with maybe Ebicom as the extra rusher and drop the rest in coverage. Burrow gets sacked way too much, turns the ball over a lot. I think the too high safety look is the appropriate look for the Bengals. It is taking away the deep ball. It's how defenses have been matching up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Anytime you have a high-flying offense like that, if you can take away the big plays, force them to beat you underneath, now you're talking about more passes completed being needed. And that's more opportunities for interceptions, more opportunities for sacks. And yes, I do believe the sacks are the key to this game. Getting home, whether it's with 4 or 5, those blitzes better be well timed because otherwise they can make you pay. And that would not be good. Ellis talking about Rob Schuh. Did you see Tom Compton getting pancaked over and over in the Seattle game? This is a serious problem. Tom Compton had a couple of good games, and it was mainly in run blocking. He got exposed to some degree in Seattle. It's been said many times, and I have to say it's true. And this is not a shot at Tom Compton, but he may be the worst tackle in all of the NFL at this moment. And that is still one of the world's best athletes at that position. So it's not a shot at him, but it's a realistic statement. And yes, I do think that he can get exposed there on that edge. And I am not looking forward to seeing that against a talented offense like the Bengals. Emu coming in at the left shoe. What do you think Shanahan had in his mind on 4th and 1 during Seattle game? What stopped him from calling a quarterback sneak? Are we talking about the run pass option wherein it ended up being a moot point because the snap was bad? I don't know if that was a long one. Typically, that's the only reason for not doing the sneak. But yeah, it was a confusing play call all the way around. If you're going to run the run pass option, bring in Trey Lance. Please. Paul coming in. Another 1978er here. Yes, that's the appropriate year to be born in. Paul and I. The rest of you, I'm sorry. If it wasn't 78, it wasn't right. I'm just kidding. Not taking shots. Mark with the super chat. What do you think about using Trey every other series for this week? That would screw up the rest of the league. It would be fascinating, but that's what we saw in preseason, and I just don't know that it is sustainable. I just don't know that you can really get into a rhythm for both signal callers at that point. And for the play caller and Kyle Shanahan, that is needed. That is, you need a rhythm. Kyle's a rhythm play caller. There's no question about it. You can see it when he's not in a rhythm. You can feel it when he's not in a rhythm. I think the key is getting core situational plays where you're bringing Trey Lance in, where everyone on the offense knows if you have 2nd or 3rd and short in between the 40s, you're going to see Trey. If you have 1st and goal inside the 5, you should see Trey. To me, if you can set up those options where you know he would come in and be the quarterback, it becomes more predictable for the offense. It would also become more predictable for the defense in that regard, but I think it's unstoppable because it becomes 11-on-11 football. I don't think the defense, even if they know why you're bringing him in at those instances, I don't think they will have an opportunity. I don't think that they will be able to stop it on a consistent enough basis there. Mark, I would love it if we saw it like we did in the preseason where you actually get him in for a full series, but I would settle for 5 snaps here and there. All right, Bryant coming in saying, Rob, you don't like me anymore, LOL. Not one question, shaking my head. It's okay. Go Niners, beat the Bengals. Bryant, I thought I did get one of your questions in. I have to say, as the chat gets rolling, it's hard to keep up. Anytime I miss somebody, it is unintentional. Bryant, this one's for you that I did not intend to skip any of those questions, but hopefully I got to enough in other episodes that one where we missed your questions was forgivable. I will definitely try to make it up in the future, Bryant. You have my apologies, my friend. We've got another super chat to end on. Elijah Mitchell will miss this game. He's always hurt. He is always hurt, but he always plays through it. I don't anticipate Elijah missing this week's game. If he does, this game will be that much harder to win. With Jeff Wilson Jr. banged up, we would need to bring in another back off of the practice squad. We don't have very many available backs out there. I think right now you would probably be looking at a situation where it's that guy that used to play for Detroit that was on our practice squad for a hot second, but it wouldn't be a good situation. That would be a nightmare scenario. Either Debo or Elijah Mitchell missing out on this game would be a killer for me. Jorge coming in. Do you see any similarities in Trey and Cap? Preseason and in the Arizona game, watching Trey reminded me so much of Cap. I think it's his height and pocket movement. Yeah, I could see that similarity of height, pocket movement. I see Trey as a different quarterback to Cap. I would need to give a lot more thought into how I would differentiate the two, but we also just don't have enough tape on Trey right now to really make a complete assessment. I think we need to see more, which is why I do hope that we get him in for some snaps. I would love it. Steve O Supremo wanting me to grade the main coaches this year. Kyle Shanahan struggled early. And I think you have to lump Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel into the same category because they are one and the same. They're in lockstep as far as how they design the run game and everything else. I think he struggled with the loss of Raheem Mostert. And DeMeco Ryans struggled with the loss of Jason Verrett. DeMeco has answered the call. DeMeco has had good adjustments, has gotten to a point where I think you can say the defense played well against Seattle. The offense has struggled, and the special teams has certainly struggled. I appreciated Richard Hightower today, though, owning the mistake against Seattle. I'm not making excuses for Richard Hightower, but what I will say is all of the injuries that have happened this year have impacted his squad more than any other. When a cornerback goes down, the person you're grabbing from was probably a starting gunner on the special teams unit. Now you're bringing in fresh sets of players that need to step up on special teams, and you're talking about a young core of people to begin with. So Richard Hightower, I cut him a little bit of slack. I do need to see more consistency out of the special teams. Kyle was a real rough start, but then found his identity in the run game. You know, I would probably on the season grade Kyle somewhere in the C+, B- range. I would grade D'Amico Ryans, and I'm lumping Mike McDaniel in with Kyle Shanahan there. I would put D'Amico Ryans much more in the solid B to B+ range. Hightower, I'm going to go C-. I probably should go lower than that. I probably should. Bryant and I have made up saying it's good. He appreciates that it's hard to follow along in the comments. Yes, it is. Ellis coming in with the super chat. Great content, Rob. Thank you for answering your head coach question. You are very, very welcome. A question around whether I plan to do a call-in show. I am going to try. I'm doing a member-only call-in show because members are people who have vested interest in the channel. I don't think that they would do anything that would make me lose my channel. I may do a voice-only call-in show for everybody. I think that would be a lot of fun. I would really enjoy it. I would enjoy it on the post-game as well. So I will try and work that in there. MILF Hunter coming in again with the super chat. Jimmy keeps smiling after interceptions. Fans are tired of it. He does have that nervous smile in the pressers. On the field, you know, at times you don't get the body language from him that you want. I agree. Fans are just frustrated with Jimmy G, and I get it. I get the frustration. I'm frustrated as well. I think we want to know what we have in Trey Lance. It's too fascinating not to know what we have in Trey Lance. And I understand that after that loss to Seattle, Kyle Shanahan is just going to cling even tighter to Jimmy G while we are in that playoff race. But if we don't get Lance some meaningful snaps, I'm just not sure that we are a true threat in the playoffs without something added, without something extra. And I think Trey Lance could be that something extra. All right, this has been a fantastic show. I appreciate all of you coming on. I look forward to doing the mailbag again next week, always Wednesday nights. Again, if you want to submit the questions ahead of time, follow me on Twitter, submit them there through the DMs or directly to my mailbag request when I say, hey, I'm doing the mailbag tomorrow. What are your questions? Or just hit me up at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Until then, 49er faithful, we are on to Cincinnati. Cheers.